Hello and welcome to another episode of Building AI SaaS product. Now in this video we'll see how we have implemented end-to-end subscription-based payment system using Cashfree, and we'll see how Webhook work. So it's going to be a lot of learning as I'm going to decode each and everything for y'all. And make sure you don't skip this video and watch till end as I have planned surprise for y'all at the end. Now let's get started. Now before I try to decode each and everything, let us try to see how this payment flow works. So as of now, we'll try to log in. So I'll enter my email, or maybe we can use Google sign in. So in my previous video, I've already explained how this authentication flow has been implemented in our SaaS app. Now let us try to continue with Google. Now I'll select our email, and once it's verified, it will be logged in. So as you all can see, now we are in our subscription page. So what happens if user is not subscribed, we'll show the subscription page as of now. For this video, I have deployed this project in our production environment just to share how this entire payment system works. Now let us try to click on this purchase subscription. And also as of now, we have kept the price as 1 rupee, right? We can keep whatever we want based on our business need. Now, as you can see, we got our checkout page that is generated by Cashfree, and we have a couple of payment options like UPI, card, net banking. So maybe what we can do, we can simply click on this QR and let's try to make the payment. So I'll open my UPI app and I'll scan this QR. Yes, the payment is done and we can see the subscription got activated. Right now we got option to access our dashboard, so maybe we can click on the dashboard. We are in our dashboard page. Now let us try to check if we have received the payment confirmation in our email or not. So as you all can see, we have received an email from our backend, and this is what it has. It has the plan details, amount paid, and transaction ID. Now let us try to understand how this entire system works, right? Now let us try to understand this in detail. So in our previous video, you would have seen whenever user clicks on purchase subscription, our app opens a Cashfree checkout model. So this is our Cashfree checkout model. Cashfree checkout model, right? Now let us try to understand how these models open whenever user click on purchase subscription. Now if you see this block of code, what it does, whenever user is on subscription page, our server component loads and it creates a Cashfree order. And to create a Cashfree order, we use these endpoints. Now in the production, we use this api.cashfree.com to create an order, and we use these details called order amount, order currency to basically create a payment order. So this order amount is basically that 1 rupee that we are seeing in our payment page, right? And we pass some header details. So if you see this header detail, we are using Cashfree app ID and Cashfree secret key. So to make sure the order request is coming from a Cashfree merchant. Now once the order is generated by the Cashfree, what we do, we simply use that payment session ID and we pass this payment session ID to our front end. Now let us try to understand how does this Cashfree checkout model appears. So in our front end, what we do, we basically initialize our SDK and we use this library called Cashfree.js. And what it does, it basically helps us in initializing the Cashfree SDK so that we can use the Cashfree payment model in our front end. So this is how we initialize the SDK, and we pass the payment session ID, and this payment session ID is coming from our server side component, which is being triggered whenever user is on subscription page, right? Now if you see this line, we use Cashfree checkout. Inside our checkout function, we pass these parameters like payment session ID and redirect target type model, and that's how the model appears based on whenever user clicks on purchase subscription, right? Now what happens whenever the payment is done? Now whenever the payment is done, we show this page, right, where the status is active and user is able to access the dashboard page. Now once the payment is done, our backend also sends an email to the user, and this is what the email looks like. It has the plan details and the amount paid with the transaction ID. Now let us try to understand this step. How does our app know once the payment has been accepted by the Cashfree payment? So if you remembered my previous video where I talked about Webhook, so the entire thing is managed by our payment webhook. Now before we dive into Webhook, let us try to understand how Cashfree use our webhook to update the payment. So if you see the Cashfree merchant dashboard, we have our webhook placed here. So what happens whenever the payment is accepted by our Cashfree payment, it triggers our webhook. Now let us try to understand how does our webhook process this request. So this is what our webhook endpoint looks like, and you can see what happens, and it's similar to post API request, but the only difference is it's consumed by our payment gateway and it's only triggered whenever the event is received, right? And it verifies the signature just to make sure it's coming from a valid source, right? If you see clearly, we have this event type payment success, right? And let's go back to our Cashfree. So also in our Cashfree, we can see event type payment success, right? So whenever our app receives the payment success event, what we do is we basically create user. So now you must be thinking, why do we even create user, right? So in my previous video where I explained a user can make payment from home page or after login, right? So let's say if a user is making payment from the home page, I will basically ask user email, name and phone number, and after the payment we'll basically create the user. And if the user already exists, we'll simply go to the subscription step where basically we'll create the subscription for the user and we'll store the payment logs in our database. So this is what happens. Now after all this thing is done, what we do, we simply use the node mailer to send the subscription email to user. Now this all things are done parallelly whenever the payment is accepted by the Cashfree. So this is what happened behind the scene. Now here's a surprise for you all. If you want this complete payment setup code base, you can simply comment code base and I'll share the entire source code with you all. And if you are liking this series, do not forget to follow and subscribe. Till then, meet you with my next update. Bye.